Hi, it's Joel here from Coaches Rising, and this dialogue is part of our pre-summit series for the upcoming Coaches Rising Summit. You can find out more about that, and we've got an amazing lineup of transformational coaches taking part at www.coachesrisingsummit.com. In this dialogue, I'm talking with Karen Kimsey-House, and she's the co-founder and CEO of the Coaches Institute. And she's going to share her decades of experience in coaching, talking about how she creates deep change with her clients. And I was totally lit up after this conversation. Karen makes a powerful call to coaches to enter into extraordinary coaching conversations where real magic can happen. And as we spoke, we entered into a space of deep resonance where the kind of conversation that she was pointing towards began to show up in that moment.
Hey, Karen, great to be with you today. How's things?
Great, wonderful. I'm excited to be talking with you.
Yeah, it's great and nice to see you face to face. We've spoken
Yeah,
before, always
yeah,
on the telephone. So
so often.
yeah,
I love how technology makes the distance just shorter and shorter these days.
yeah, it is. I think I was saying that to someone. Skype is a pretty amazing thing, what it allows. So
hmm
yeah, it's
hmm
good to know that. Well, so there's a couple of questions I'm asking people. You're going to be leading a session in the upcoming Coaches Rising Summit, which I'm really excited about. Actually, I was reading through the session description a few days ago, and it sounds fantastic. So there's a couple. We're speaking to a lot of the faculty, and I'm asking them a couple of questions. So I'd love to dive in with you. And the first one I've been asking is quite a personal one in a way. It's was there a shift that you made personally that allowed you to become a more effective coach with your clients, a more powerful or effective coach?
Mm. I love that question. I think for me, the big turning point, I I've always wanted to learn and grow and expand. A child of the 60s, moved into the 70s, the human potential movement. But so much of the work that I did was about trying to fix myself,
Mm.
trying to improve myself, trying to heal myself. And for me, everything shifted when I turned my attention away from myself and started growing and developing my skills and abilities so that I could be of more service and more useful to my world and to my clients. I did exactly the same things. The learning and the growing content was exactly the same, but my whole orientation shifted and changed. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting healing and wanting to, fill up those holes in ourselves. But at some point, I think we have to look out to our world
Mhm.
and look at how we can serve and contribute. That was a huge, huge shift for me, and it changed everything. It
Mm.
changed how I work. It changed how I related to people in my intimate relationships, and it certainly shifted how I coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hear that, and because I think that's something I've experienced in my own life recently was
Yeah,
just the sense of working on myself like a project, and
right,
then having a feeling of like, will I ever get to that place?
right.
Where one day everything's perfect, and I've done enough meditation and whatever, and suddenly, and it,
You pass, right?
yeah,
You're good enough.
right, and it just never comes, and it's like I've been
Yeah.
through a period of quite a lot of despair actually with that project, and so it's a kind of relief to hear you say this. I'm just curious what happened for you after that shift, what it made possible, or how things became different.
Well, I love that question too. You have such great questions. Um, I think there were two things. First of all, it's a choice. I frankly was getting a little bored with Project Karen. I was finding it, as you were saying, a little um, all consuming and sort of uh, never ending. Like I was never going to get there. So I was getting a little bored and a little restless and a little tired
Mm,
of continuing to improve myself so I could, clear the bar. And secondly, I think I found something that I cared deeply enough about, that I felt passionate enough about, and connected to it at such a cellular level that it made it that my desire was so great to be able to contribute more of myself that made that shift really easy. So I think those two things converged. I was getting done with being focused just on myself and bored with that. I think it gets a little dull after a while. And we started CTI, and I just became so excited about coaching and about coactive coaching and about the difference that I wanted to make in my clients' lives and in the world. That was so much more interesting than my own human frailty. So it made the switch easy.
I think there's something pretty significant in what you're saying, in this kind of switch to orienting towards other people and something that moves you. There's something that you care deeply about. I don't know quite what my question is, but it's like, I wonder if there's a way that we can begin to facilitate that before we hit those, those kind of edges of okay, this is just, too much focus on myself, and we can make that switch sooner because it seems so powerful.
Mm-hmm. I think the most powerful part of it is the realization that we're part of something larger than ourselves. That sounds so completely obvious. Of course, we're duh, right? And yet to really experience our place in the family of things and to understand that as we do the work we do, we're contributing to a much larger conversation than the one that we're having with ourselves. I think that's really profound. And I would love to see that be a part of our educational process. I don't know how it is in your country, but in the United States, we really just focus so much on content and on what and on, producing the information and getting the grade and acquiring the skills, and so little on the individual's emotional and spiritual development, separate from religion or whatever one's religious beliefs are, really helping our children understand that they have a place in the family of things, that they have a contribution to make, that there's a conversation afoot that's larger than just themselves. I would love to see that be a part of the way we think of, education, of parenting, and of the way that human beings move through the world, And right now I see, at least in my country, our education systems actually doing worse than not supporting that. I see them being a barrier to that development.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar over here. I think there's a growing focus on that kind of thing, but still compared to the old paradigm, it's very small. So, I wonder how that shows up for you in your coaching of others. Is that a lens that you look through and being in this interconnection? Yeah.
Yeah, well, most of my coaching work these days is what I call leadership focus. Not that I'm just doing leadership development. I believe we're all leaders in our life, and we all have a contribution that we want to make. And that fulfillment actually comes from knowing that you're living your life in a way that makes a difference. I don't think that's unique to Karen Kimsey-House. I think that's a hunger that lives in all of us. We want to know that our time here on earth mattered. It's so satisfying and fulfilling. So, of course, when I work with clients, I focus wherever they want to go. It's their agenda. But for me, the context is always supporting that individual and connecting with the unique and special contribution that they have to make and how they can make that in a way that is fulfilling and satisfying and enriching in their own personal lives.
Yeah, nice.
I think that makes coaching really robust and rich and heartful.
Yeah. I wonder if you could say a bit more about that, because it feels like, again, that shift away from myself just as a project, which could be a bit not narcissistic, but there's something very different about someone who's then focusing on what do they want to create and the impact they want to have in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it starts with the coach. Of course, we all, as coaches, we want to be brilliant and fabulous and wonderful. We want to be good at what we do. We also want to make a difference with our clients. We want to be able to contribute. So we want to have a lot of skills and tools that enable us to do a good job. That's completely understandable and it's human, and I don't think it's narcissistic at all. However, in order to really step into the arena that I'm talking about, we have to be willing to let go of what we know and truly open our hearts to the magnificence of the client and believe in the very most for them. You know, believe in the more for them than they can even get their hands around for themselves. And I think when a coach is able to do that, it illuminates something in a client. And it's irresistible because it's, I don't want to use a word like destiny, but it's it's right action. It's where life is wanting to go. So things become connected in a whole new way.
Right.
When we move away from the content, it's not like I don't know that I know that clients want results. Some want to lose weight, some want more money, some want a relationship. All that's great. It's the results are fine, but they live in a larger context of the evolution of a life and a spirit. And when the coach can tap into that place with the client, I'm getting a lot of feedback on my headset. Is it just me, Joel, or is it you too?
It's all clear here. So
Okay, great. I'm just going to ignore it then.
okay.
So when a coach can tap into that place, the coaching takes on a resonance that you just can't ask. You can't access from the content and from the to-dos, from the doing.
Yeah, cool. If we want to kind of call back, end the call and start again, that's also possible. If the distraction becomes too much.
No, it's not too much.
Great.
It's fine. I just didn't want to mess up your recording.
Yeah, great. So I get this is a bit of a paradigm shift. It feels quite profound in that, the coach isn't there trying to be a good coach, to do a good job, but then is instead like, bringing a certain presence and a lens to their client that is, it's not just about results. It goes much deeper than that.
Yes, I think so. I mean, people ask me all the time, what are the 2 or 3 things that make really great coaching? I think training is important. I think you need to do your homework and learn and have a system that you operate from and develop skills. That's really, really important. But once all of that, and once you have competence there, I think the most important thing you can do as a coach is to love your clients and to believe in them. Like really believe in them, to like be their champion for the very, very most, that they can create and accomplish and express in this lifetime. And that's not something that you can, there's not 10 steps to get there. That's not a dogmatic path. That's something that is creative and mysterious.
Because I like that you just said that. And in a way, my question is, well, let me ask it. And because in a way it is asking, like, how do we as coaches open to that space? And I'm getting you're saying, it's not about learning a new trick. That's the whole point. It's something different.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's fine to have tools and skills. I use everything in my coaching, whatever I happen to be working on and whatever is lying around. It's just understanding that that might be a handy tool, but that's not the point, I think I come from a background in theater, and for me, coaching is a great coaching is a lot like great acting. You practice and you rehearse, you learn your lines, you do your blocking, you work really hard to understand the period of the piece you're in and the character that you're working with. So you do a lot of preparation. And then when it comes time to be on stage, you have to let go of all of that completely and just give yourself over to the magic that happens between an actor and the audience, between an actor and fellow performers. And if you can do that, then what you're working on, then the play that you're in will be elevated beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary. I think the same thing is true for coaching. We need to practice. We need to have school, tools and skills and training. All of that's really wonderful. But when we sit down with a client, we have to let all of that go and trust, ourselves, trust our client, and trust the magic, I think, that happens in the relationship between two people. I think a coaching relationship, a coaching conversation is just magical, I mean, I hate to sound too ungrounded about it, but I think once you have a foundation, giving yourself over to that mystery can take the coaching in surprising and delightful and extraordinary directions.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't, I love it. I mean, actually, as you talk about it, I can feel something start to open up, a certain space
Mm,
for me. I can feel my whole body resonating with what you're saying, and like a dropping into a kind of presence
mhm,
right now
mhm.
where things do feel more magical. It's like there's something unknown, it's a bit scary. It's like, what's going to happen? But there's a sort of
Right.
a space for potentiality or emergence or something.
Yeah, I love what you said. It's a space for potentiality and emergence. And as long as we're clinging to our need to perform, to
Mm.
produce an outcome, to do good work, whatever that is that drives us to be solely in our mind, um, holding on to that blocks that emergence. You can't help but.
Mm.
Nothing new can happen until we let go of what we know.
It feels like a real invitation to take a risk or to be able to meet that fear we might have of performing and serving our clients, but then take a risk and step beyond it.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel it. I feel it opening up between us right now, actually. We don't know exactly where we're going. We're having a delicious conversation. We're supposed to be doing this video for Coaches Rising, but instead, I think we're just completely connected and in the conversation that we're having and letting it emerge and
Mm.
go where it needs to go. And I love that. I think that's so, I think our world is so desperate for that kind of essence-based connection.
Mm. Mm. And as you say that, like I feel more strongly that sense of something emerging. It feels like kind of
Yeah.
speaking online, and I wonder. Then there's a kind of curiosity which emerges, which is how does this connect with performance? Like in some way, I guess many of us are coaching our clients to connect to their essence in order to impact the world and perform in an authentic way they want. I'm just curious how because I feel like it does.
Yeah, I think it does too. As you were talking, one thing occurred to me. Just one thing popped into my mind that I think really messes us up when when it comes to performance, and that is um, the sort of the myth that more is better. So if the client is emerging and growing and expanding, more would be better. If we're headed in a particular direction, going further would be better. If we're aspiring for more would be better. And that's such a lie. It's not true. So I think that sort of constantly seeking more, bigger results, better results, more impact on our clients, better
Mm,
coaching, bigger coaching, you know, six-figure incomes. I don't know. It just goes on and on. More, more, more. I think it's not like I don't want all of the people in my world and my clients to be sufficient and to have everything we need. But I think that incessant seeking for more has us miss the magic of the moment.
mm,
And we miss that space of essence that's emerging right here, right now for ourselves and for our clients. And we're missing the opportunity to bring our clients present into their life now with what's happening now, knowing that where they want to go is a part of what's happening now, but it's just a part.
yeah, I mean, I'm really touched by what you're saying, actually, and I just feel that sense of magic again, and
Yeah, me too.
like I want to smile a lot. I notice.
I love talking to you.
I know. I think also, I see that paradigm that I get caught in sometimes. Again, maybe it comes back to what you're saying about trying to maybe um, be a good coach and give our
Mhm,
clients more. It's like just that sense of we've got to go further. I've got to get more in order to serve my
mhm,
client. And again, it feels like a polarity in some way. Yes, there is a kind of sense of unfolding and more, but there's also equally just a being here and
mhm,
with what is. It feels like
mhm.
a kind of a relief.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier on in the call, too, about this the shift that happens when we start to take our attention off of ourselves. Are we good enough? Are we enough as a coach? Am I a good coach? Am I good enough as a coach? Am I doing a good enough job? Am I providing my clients with enough value? Those are wonderful questions. It's not that one should not be always aspiring to improve and grow, but when we become too preoccupied with our own value, we can't help but start, like a little hamster on a wheel, start running for more so we can prove that we're good enough. And when we can take our attention off of that, and trust that we are enough, and trust that the client is enough, and trust that coaching is enough, and really open our hearts, I think that's when we get to connect to this place of essence that we're talking about. And from there, we can still accomplish results. I can still find a relationship if that's something that the client wants. It's just that process then becomes transformative rather than transactional. I'm going to do X, Y, Z so I can get a relationship. No, I'm going to allow this quest for the love of my life to grow and expand and, shape my consciousness and, allow me to look deeply into how I want to expand my capacity to contribute to my world and to share my love with the people in my life. Those are two same outcomes, just very, very different journeys and very different experiences in coaching,
Yeah. Well, actually, it does feel like a paradigm shift for me in terms of, you said transactional in one way, we can be chasing something in order to be okay, or to be successful.
Right.
And that does feel like a very different journey than something that feels a lot more, I heard somebody say like inside out, where it's like, I loved when you talk about connecting to essence, and then, I can still take action, I can pursue things, but it's not coming from a need, a sense of lack, or a sense of that I'm not good enough, but it's just more of a kind of, this kind of authentic unfolding, and I'm on the journey, and the journey is the thing itself. So.
Right. And when that happens, then there's a curiosity and an adventure, and delight is another word that comes to mind, that comes into the experience of living day to day, because I'm not just going through my day trying to check off things on my to-do list or try to produce results, although my to-do list is long and I will be producing results today. It's more of an exploration of how I can continue to expand my consciousness, really, and my ability to contribute.
Yeah, I'm just sort of letting that one in. I think, again, it touches me how important that message is, and how hard it can be to do as well.
Yes.
To remember that. I think the remembering of it. Yeah.
Especially when the circumstances are challenging. It's easy to be filled with light and love when things are going well. When things, when life hands us challenges, it's more difficult to stay connected. It's our human nature to want to contract. And yet it's those very times that we most need to practice, expanding and trusting.
There is another question that I mentioned at the start. I would ask too, and I think we may have talked about it, but maybe something different comes up. And it's the question I've been asking people is like, if you were to say one thing to coaches listening, maybe one piece of wisdom to impart about something that you think would help them become a more impactful coach. I can hear the contradiction in a way, as we've been talking about it. But yes, what would you say to people? What would be that thing?
Oh, I love that question. I think it's along the lines of what we've been talking about, but just to be a little more clearly, you said inside out. I think it would be to coach from the inside out rather than from the outside in, and to really trust the wisdom and the truth of their own heart. Building a coaching practice takes work. It takes dedication, and you need to really stay with it. It's building. I mean, I've built a coaches training institute from nothing, and I know firsthand how much dedication and work it takes to build a business. If an individual doesn't stay connected to the resonance and the truth of why they're doing what they're doing and what they love most about the work they're doing and trust themselves really to know what's best for them. It doesn't mean you can't get advice and counsel from all kinds of different experts, but ultimately, the most important person in your coaching practice is you, the coach. That's the most important part of your business. And so really coaching and creating your business from the inside out, from the heart of things, keeps you true. And it keeps you excited and juicy rather than striving and brittle.
Well, I think this is. I mean, I think we've gone really deep, really fast, and
I think so too. We always do.
I love our conversations too. Yeah. I think this is a great place just to ask you if you could say a few words about what you'll be, teaching and talking about in the upcoming summit in your session.
Yeah. My session is going to be along the lines of the conversation that we're having. Really, how do we move aside our understandable desire to perform well and our self-consciousness of how we're performing as coaches so that we can be free to really dance in the moment with our client and trust what is emerging. So what do we need to move aside to be available for that? And what do we need to claim so that we have the gas in our engine to be able to keep our attention there? Will be the thrust of what we'll be talking about. I'll be talking a little bit about my own experience and my own story. And then we'll be doing some exercises and some practice in smaller groups so people will have a chance to apply some of the things we're talking about.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, after our conversation now, I'm even more excited to dive into that. So, yeah,
Thank you.
great. Well, I just want to thank you now for how generous you've been sharing and just this space that we've entered into. I think actually you're really embodying, transmitting what you're talking about for me.
Good.
So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I've appreciated that a lot.
It's a pleasure. Yeah. I'll see you soon. Yeah. In October, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hey, it's Joel here again, and I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. If you're excited about what we've been talking about and you want to know more about just how you can create this kind of magic with your coaching clients, then you can learn directly from Karen and many powerful master coaches in our upcoming online Coaches Rising Summit. Other faculty members include Michael Neal, Steve Chandler, Otto Sharma, Katie Hendricks, James Flaherty, Michaela Bohm, Rich Litvin, Marita Frijan, Rosamund Sander, and many more. So go and check that out. Each of them will teach you the tools and approaches they use to coach others into deep change. The sessions are all live and interactive, and it begins on October the 19th. So head to www.coachesrisingsummit.com and you can find out more and access all the other free pre-summit audios with the faculty there too.